Someone's coming! Get back here! What? Oh! 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 Wait! Wait! Don't leave me!
Talk about a cliffhanger. Remember when your favorite TV show didn't just end, it got canceled without warning, leaving characters and fans stranded with no closure? Well, today we're counting down 7 beloved 80s shows that just ended. And hey, if you like these kinds of videos, be sure to like and subscribe. It really does help the channel. Now, let's get into the countdown. Number 7. My Two Dads, NBC. Before DNA tests became daytime TV fodder, I'm looking at you, Maury Povich, NBC gave us My Two Dads, a show built entirely on the idea that one girl, two dads, and no clear paternity results made for perfectly reasonable family court logic. The show launched in 1987 and featured free-spirited muralist Joey Harris, played by Greg Evigan, and buttoned-down financial advisor Michael Taylor, played by Paul Reiser, had both dated Nicole's mom years earlier.
13 years later, you still wear high karate?
Wasn't bad enough I had to share it with you when she was alive, huh?
After she passed away, they were both awarded custody of Nicole, played by Staci Keanan, because the judge couldn't decide who the real father was, and apparently neither could the writers. The magic was in the odd couple chemistry. One dad smelled like turpentine and patchouli oil, the other like laminated spreadsheets and a freshly balanced checkbook. And overseeing this legally questionable living arrangement was Judge Margaret Wilbur, played by Florence Stanley, best known for Fish, who also happened to be their landlord and pop-in voice of judgment whenever the plot needed a boost.
I was passing by and I heard crying, which leads me to ask quietly and sensitively, what the hell's going on in here?
Each week delivered heartfelt parenting lessons, usually after Joey turned the loft into a paint-splattered jungle gym, and Michael responded like someone had just spilled juice on his quarterly reports. Guest stars were a Who's That parade of future icons. Giovanni Ribisi as Nicole's tongue-tied admirer Corey, Chad Allen as crush-worthy Zach, and NFL legend Dick Butkus slinging burgers at the diner like he was still on the Bears' defensive line, and yes, there was even a crossover with Night Court. Bull showed up to protect Judge Wilbur from a recently paroled criminal, because the 80s never turned down a good crossover. The finale, See You in September, which aired on April 30th of 1990, gave fans a heartfelt goodbye, but not the closure they were really waiting for. Joey left for San Francisco with a new love interest, and those long-teased DNA test results, well, Nicole shredded them.
I have two dads.
Yeah, you do.
Three seasons of build-up gone in under 5 seconds. So while we got to see where the characters ended up, the central mystery at the heart of the show, who Nicole's biological father really was, remained a giant question mark. And that's why this one still stings. My Two Dads didn't get canceled without warning. It just ghosted us on the one answer that would have made the whole journey feel complete. Number 6, The Jeffersons. See, man, I just love that theme song. All in the Family lit the fuse, but The Jeffersons was the fireworks. Premiering in 1975, it changed television. For 11 groundbreaking seasons, dry cleaning magnate George Jefferson, played by Sherman Hemsley, and his long-suffering wife Louise, known to everyone as Wheezy, played by Isabel Sanford, climbed from Queens to a deluxe apartment in the sky, tackling race, class, and the American dream without ever losing their comedic bounce.
Who are you? Oh, he owns this, rubble. Your name, sir?
Can't you read? It's written right on the door. Go on.
Where sitcoms tiptoed, The Jeffersons stomped. Interracial marriage, racism, economic inequality, workplace discrimination. It all got airtime between punchlines, of course. The supporting cast included their son Lionel, played first by Mike Evans and later by Damon Evans, no relation.
Hi, Lionel.
Hi.
His girlfriend turned wife Jenny, played by Berlinda Tolbert. Their best friends Tom and Helen Willis, played by Franklin Cover and Roxy Roker, Lenny Kravitz's mom, by the way. Their British neighbor Mr. Bentley, played by Paul Benedict, and Florence Johnston, their sharp-tongued maid, played by Marla Gibbs.
This woman is a saint. Look who she married.
The show celebrated black success without erasing the struggle that built it. George's empire wasn't a gag. It was proof you could move on up and still remember where you came from. Then came the network betrayal. In 1985, CBS canceled the show with no warning, no farewell arc, no goodbye episode. Reportedly, Hemsley found out by reading Variety over coffee, and Sanford heard from a relative who saw it in the headlines. Sure, ratings had slipped, but CBS didn't help by yanking it from its longtime Sunday slot and tossing it into a brutal Tuesday lineup. The way they canceled it was straight up disrespect. The final episode, Red Robins, aired on July 2nd, 1985. Just another ordinary episode that ended an extraordinary show. In the end, life imitated art and slammed the door without a goodbye. That like button and subscribe. Drop a comment about which show still haunts you. Now, back to the heartbreak. Number 4, Punky Brewster, NBC.
Seems you can't be sure of anything anymore.
Remember when network TV said, hey, what if a homeless kid and a grumpy old man became roommates and it was somehow heartwarming? Well, that was Punky Brewster. The show debuted in 1984 with Soleil Moon Frye as Punky, a street-smart kid abandoned at a Chicago shopping center by her mom. Ooh. She ends up squatting in an empty apartment and gets discovered by Henry Warneman.
Who are you?
I'm Punky Brewster. And who are you?
I'm the manager of this building, Henry Warneman.
A cranky but lovable widowed photographer played by George Gaines. What followed was peak 80s wholesomeness. Rainbow socks, life lessons, and the power of chosen family. Enter Punky Power, her actual catchphrase, delivered with so much wide-eyed sincerity, it somehow made mismatched shoes feel like a revolution. She wasn't alone either. Punky's best friend was Sherry, who lived upstairs with her no-nonsense nurse grandma, Betty. Alan was the geeky neighbor kid. Margot was the rich girl frenemy with a vocabulary that could terrify a thesaurus, and then there was Mike, the world's chillest teacher, who managed to be both a role model and a walking after-school special.
Alan, I bet you didn't read your CPR chapter last night.
Okay, who told?
But here's where things got messy. NBC gave it 2 seasons before pulling the plug in 1986. Why? Well, because 60 Minutes was steamrolling everything in its Sunday night path, so Punky got benched, but not for long. Syndication swooped in like a social worker with a heart of gold, reviving the show in 1987 and giving us 2 more seasons of mall-based hijinks, teenage drama, and yes, a literal dog wedding.
Brandon and Brenda, I now pronounce you husband and wife. Brandon, you may now lick the bride.
By season 4, George, Punky, and Sherry had opened a burger joint in the mall, naturally called Punky's Place, and the storylines leaned harder into teen crushes, friendship drama, and life lessons served with a side of neon. And just when you thought Punky had finally grown up, she did. In 2021, Peacock brought her back as a single mom of 3, still rocking that scrappy optimism. Soleil Moon Frye returned, so did Sherry Johnson, and Freddie Prinze Jr. joined her as her ex-husband. But despite the nostalgia, the revival fizzled and was canceled after just 1 season, so yeah, Punky Brewster didn't go out with a bang, more like a bark. Number 3, Benson, ABC. Before The West Wing made politics feel noble, Benson gave us government dysfunction with a side of sarcasm. 2-time Emmy winner Robert Guillaume's Benson Dubois was the smartest guy in every room. Quick-witted, quick-thinking, and constantly bailing out his boss from political and PR disasters. Originally hired as head of household affairs for Governor Gatling and his daughter Katie, Benson wasn't just managing the mansion. He was basically holding the whole administration together with duct tape and eye rolls.
This is Benson.
Benson?
Benson.
Reverend Benson Jackson?
Are you sure he's the governor?
Spun off from the soap opera spoof Soap, Benson, which ran from 1979 to 1986, ditched the melodrama and embraced classic sitcom structure. And the supporting cast was just as unforgettable. There was Governor Eugene Gatling, played by James Noble, a scatterbrained story-spinning widower who meant well even when he had no idea what was going on. Then there was Gretchen Kraus, the fiercely proud German chief, played by Inga Swenson, who constantly traded insults with Benson until she became his fiercest ally.
Would you look at this?
Should you be coming out? The sun's up.
Their running gag was Benson would mutter a barb under his breath and she'd shout back from off-screen. The show also had young Katie Gatling, played by Missy Gold, keeping things grounded with heart, and Clayton Endicott III, played by Renee Auberjonois, as the snobbish, hypochondriac chief of staff with a superiority complex and zero chill.
Now, Peter, I am not interested in one of your harebrained schemes.
For 7 seasons, Benson held it all together, mentoring, managing, and slowly moving up the ladder, so when he finally ran for governor, it felt like destiny. The finale, and The Winner Is, aired on April 19th of 1986 and set up the ultimate matchup, Benson versus Gatling in the general election. It was the calm, capable insider versus the affable but out-of-his-depth governor.
With only 12 precincts yet to report, it is virtually a dead heat between Governor Gatling, Lieutenant Governor Benson Dubois.
The campaign was tight, emotions ran high, and then, just as the results were about to be announced, freeze frame. No winner, no speech, no resolution, just a still shot of Benson and Gatling watching the TV, like a broken VCR, ate the last 5 minutes of the episode again.
I think something's happening here.
With only 7 precincts to report, Cap TV has projected a winner.
Good luck, Benson. Good luck, Governor.
And the winner is...
Turns out ABC had requested a cliffhanger. The idea was to create buzz going into the next season, but instead of renewal, the show was quietly canceled, leaving democracy hanging in the balance. Director Gary Brown later revealed that 3 endings were filmed: Benson wins, Gatling wins, and a tie, but they never picked one. And executive producer Bob Frazier said the plan, had the show continued, was for Gatling to win, with Benson becoming a U.S. Senator. So after 7 seasons of growth, all we got was a political shrug. No closure, no catharsis, just the biggest unresolved election in TV history. Number 2, Too Close for Comfort, ABC and syndication. Too Close for Comfort aired from 1980 to 1987 and asked the eternal question: what happens when your adult kids move back home and turn your empty nest into a 3-ring circus? Ted Knight played Henry Rush, a cranky but lovable cartoonist whose San Francisco townhouse became ground zero for multi-generational chaos. Henry and wife Muriel, played by Nancy DeSalt, figured their golden years would be quiet, but then their adult daughters Jackie, played by Deborah Van Valkenburg, and Sarah, played by Lydia Cornell, moved into the downstairs apartment, dragging in boyfriends, drama, and little respect for boundaries. Add in nosy neighbor Monroe, played by Hollywood Squares staple Jim J. Bullock, in full chaos mode, and you had sitcom lightning. We loved it because it captured the everyday chaos of family life and made it funny. And just to keep things extra weird, Henry often drew his comic strip Cosmic Cow with a hand puppet version of the character on his arm. It wasn't exactly normal, but somehow it worked. By the end of season 2, the show leaned into sitcom survival mode and Muriel gave birth to a son.
I want to do something I want to do all my life. Watch football with my son.
It was a classic sitcom move: when in doubt, add a baby. Suddenly, Henry was juggling bottle feedings and cartoon deadlines in his 50s. The show hit top 10 ratings in its early years, but after a bad time slot change in season 3, ABC pulled the plug in 1983. Thankfully, syndication swooped in, keeping the show alive for 3 more seasons with the same cast and even stronger ratings. Then came season 6, when the show hit the reboot button and promptly erased half the cast. The show was rebranded as The Ted Knight Show with a new setting and new premise. Henry moves to Marin County, buys into a local newspaper, and Monroe tags along as a reporter. The daughters were gone, the comic strip was retired, and the show's heart was missing. And then, the unthinkable. In August of 1986, Ted Knight died of cancer midway through the season. Rather than give Henry a proper send-off, the show shifted to writing him out as traveling for work. Ted Knight appears in the first 12 season 6 episodes, and via archive footage, even in the finale that aired on February 7th of 1987. But behind the scenes, the show pushed through 10 episodes without him, continuing as if life and Henry were just on a break. So what did fans get? Well, no final scene and no goodbye. Just Monroe managing a newspaper and a family that vanished like they never existed. The show limped to its end in February of 1987, with reruns quietly folded back into syndication under the old Too Close for Comfort title. It wasn't just a show without closure, it was a show that pretended its heart hadn't stopped beating. Number 1, Alf, NBC. At number 1, we've got maybe the most traumatizing cliffhanger of the entire 1980s, Alf. Premiering in September of 1986, Alf introduced viewers to a wisecracking alien, short for alien life form, who crash-landed into the garage of the Tanner family and became everyone's favorite sarcastic cat-craving house guest. For 4 seasons, Alf dodged the government's alien task force and turned suburban life into a sitcom circus. The plan was always to end the series on a high note. Maybe he'd finally phone home, hop on a spaceship, and get his Melmacian happily ever after.
No! It's irritating almost at once.
What was that?
Melmacian mating call.
Instead, we got this. The final episode ends with Alf making contact with surviving Melmacians, ready for a tearful goodbye and a fresh start, until the alien task force shows up, sirens blaring, and surrounds him. The last thing viewers saw was Alf's terrified face frozen mid-scream. Because nothing says family sitcom like a final freeze frame of your title character staring into the headlights of a government raid and then fade to black. And that's where NBC left it. There was no season 5, no reunion, just kids everywhere staring at their TVs wondering why their favorite TV show suddenly felt like a government sting operation. A made-for-TV movie called Project Alf aired 6 years later and technically picked up the story. Alf avoids execution, foils a cover-up, and somehow gets promoted to Earth's official alien ambassador. But with no Tanner family and a completely new cast, it felt less like closure and more like a weird fanfic with a budget. For a generation of fans, Alf's fate still feels unfinished. There was no goodbye, no redemption arc, just Alf and a lot of traumatized kids. And there you have it, 7 beloved shows that went dark faster than you could say we'll be right back. Which unfinished storyline haunts your TV soul? Drop it in the comments so you don't miss our upcoming retro TV deep dives. Until next time, this is Remember When.